how lovely. The sun's out and the birds are tweeting behind you. That has to be a good, optimistic sign, doesn't it? There's lots to talk to you about, clearly, but these mass resignations, what's the mood like at Labour HQ?
Well, look, we're fired up and ready to go in the Labour Party. We've been preparing for a long time for this election, and we were pleased that Rishi Sunak decided to get on with it sooner rather than later. And we're out across the country. Keir's been touring the nations and regions. All of our candidates are out launching their campaigns and knocking on doors. And we're excited for the 6 weeks ahead.
Yeah, but what's interesting is through all of this, you've got to win over people. What you're weakest on, in terms of public opinion, traditionally at least, is do you trust Labour with the economy? Now, that tide may be turning, and what you've kept telling us is that everything is fully costed, and a lot of it's costed on non-dom, the non-dom tax loophole being closed, and on putting VAT on private schools. And yet, you don't even agree with that, do you? You've said you don't think it's the right policy, and you said a few years ago it wouldn't even bring in the money that the Labour Party said it would. So how can you campaign on that issue if you don't believe in it?
Yeah, excuse me for laughing, but I know that the Conservative head office has sent out a list this morning, questions to ask Darren Jones, and this has come up a few times. Look, that article, which I think was in the Daily Mail, was an inaccurate representation of me talking through the policy trade-offs with students in my constituency. But we can be crystal clear, because the Institute for Fiscal Studies, independent, cross-party, respected economic institution, has looked at our policy on the VAT loophole on private school fees, has adjusted for things like behavioural change, the way that schools have operated in the past, and they've concluded what we've concluded, that we can raise billions of pounds a year, which we will prioritise to pay for 6,500 additional specialist teachers in state schools across the country.
Just to reassure you, we don't ask questions that anyone tells us to ask, but this is
I'm sure. I've just seen the list.
Yeah.
I've just seen the list.
I didn't know there was a list.
No, it's more than we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's still an interesting point that you don't sound fully, or you didn't once upon a time sound fully convinced that charging VAT on private school fees would be the way forward. Are you now actively saying, yes, it really is, and it's going to make a financial difference, and this is how we're going to cost other things?
Yes, because as I say, you can refer out to the Institute for Fiscal Studies report on this policy. They are expert economics professionals. They're independent of any party. They're a charity. They will be looking at Labour, Conservative, other party policies and setting out what their view is on it. And they've been very clear that closing the VAT loophole on private school fees will not result in a huge number of pupils moving into the state sector, will raise billions of pounds a year, and that will be money available to us in the Labour Treasury to invest in 6,500 state specialist teachers in state schools.
But how can you base your economics on taxes that people don't have to pay? Because whatever the predictions, people can take their children out of those schools and therefore the tax doesn't get paid. People, especially people with non-dom status who've generally got pots of money, could quite simply move out the country, then you lose that income as well. It seems pretty sort of sandy ground to be building the economy on.
This is what the economists refer to as behavioural change, and you factor that into your assumptions on the math. So on private schools, for example, private school fees have been increasing quite a lot year on year for the past number of years, and parents have paid that additional fee in order to keep those their children in those private schools. And so therefore you can assume that if schools continue to follow what they've done in the past in the future, that parents will continue to do that. And look, it's for schools to decide whether they pass on the 20% in one go or whether they phase it in over a number of years and kind of balance their books to help parents. But these are private organisations that pay commercial private fees for private education, and that's why we think the VAT loophole needs to be closed.
Rachel Reeves has done a very big interview in the Daily Mail this morning, saying that she's basically pleading with Daily Mail-type voters that she can be trusted that with their money. It's interesting, clearly you're going for that middle ground, which everybody says is so important to both parties if they want to win.
Well, look, as the Labour Party, we aspire to be a party that governs the country in the interests of all of the British people. And so we will speak in this campaign, as we have done previously, to lots of different types of people in different newspapers in different parts of the country. But our message is the same to everybody, irrespective of what paper they read, which is we need to bring stability back to our economy. That Rachel Reeves and I will not play fast and loose with taxpayers' money. We will get the economy growing again, and that this approach, this stability back into the economy, is change after years of chaos from the Conservatives, which has resulted in lots of prices going up and costing families dearly over the last few years.
Yes, but you and Rachel Reeves, I mean, to be fair, exactly like the Conservative Party as well, are sort of promising sunshine, aren't you? You're a stable economy, you're promising us growth, and yet the IFS, which is an independent body, has said the state of public finances are so bad they're going to hang over whoever the new government is like a dark cloud, and an open and robust discussion is really needed now to work out how to tackle it. Are you really taking those sort of warnings seriously?
Absolutely, and we've been saying for some time that if we win this election, we will have the worst financial inheritance of any party coming into government since the Second World War. I mean, the state of the country is beyond bad because of the chaos from the Conservatives that we've seen and their incompetence in running the country. We've been very upfront and honest with people about that. That means it will be hard, especially to begin with, but we have plans to turn the country around, to reform our public services and to change the country. And we know that that's the only way you can get the economy back onto a sustainable footing and make it secure for the future.
Jeremy Hunt has been speaking about inheritance tax, saying that he doesn't feel that it's very Tory. He's put it on the agenda, which means that you're going to get asked about your view on inheritance tax over the next 6 weeks. So what is your view on inheritance tax? Is he right, saying it's just not morally right?
Well, look, the first thing I would politely say to Jeremy Hunt is he's getting into a bit of a habit of announcing unfunded tax cuts. They've already promised to abolish national insurance altogether, costing £46 billion a year, without saying how they're going to pay for that. Are they going to cut pensions, the health service? Are they going to increase income tax? We need to know the answers to that. And now Jeremy Hunt is saying that he thinks he wants to abolish inheritance tax as well. That's going to cost billions of pounds more on top each year. So I think the Conservatives really need to set out in detail how they plan to fund and cost their policies when they announce them during this election campaign.
But what about your view on inheritance tax?
Well, we've been very clear in the Labour Party that the tax burden on working people is too high. It's the highest it has been in 70 years. That's why we have no plans to increase taxes on working people, and why we've supported the last two cuts to national insurance in Parliament before the election was called. And look, in order to keep taxes as low as possible in the future, you do have to get the economy back on track and get it growing, because that means you've got the revenue coming into the Treasury to be able to pay for our public services, and people's pay will increase in line with a growing economy.
You managed to dodge the question, though. Would you like to see inheritance tax go at some point?
Let me try again. We have no plans to change inheritance tax.
OK.
Well, there you go. Direct answer to your question.
There you go. No, that's nice and clear.
The broader tax conversation is important.
Yeah, it is. Can I just ask you, though, and again, we haven't got the facts and figures, and we're not economic experts, as you well know, but we talked to your counterpart earlier on, Bim Afalami, who said that in Labour's accounts running into this election, you've got, despite the fact you say everything is costed, he says you've got a £38 billion black hole.
Oh, Bim, I mean, look, Bim knows full well that if he looks at these dodgy dossiers that his colleagues have produced in the Conservative Party, which are based on assumptions from Conservative political advisers, that they are not reflective of Labour Party policy. You can Google these dossiers, by the way, they're on the internet, and if you scroll to the bottom of the PDFs, you'll see assumptions provided by the Conservative Party political advisers. If you look at those assumptions, compare them with our 6 steps, you'll see that they're just not costing Labour Party policy. All of our policy is fully funded and fully costed, and we're very happy to answer any questions on that during this election period.
Oh, jolly good, because we'll be coming up with plenty more. Darren Jones, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.